Today I'm going to start work on Scrappy, a Celica ST183. I bought this Toyota from a scrapyard. It is a 35-year-old non-runner and it has some stories to tell. The first indication that Scrappy has lived an odd life is up front here, where the Toyota symbol has been removed and you can see the faint outline of a Porsche emblem. Somebody decided that this sporty looking coupe should be labeled a Porsche and to just ignore the word Celica below that. But I know that Scrappy is a Toyota at heart and I'm interested in what is inside her engine bay. The 1991 variant of the 3S-FE engine in Ish, my 1996 RAV4, is almost exactly the same as the 1991 variant of the 3S-FE engine in Scrappy. I'm very familiar with that engine. I know it's extremely robust. And if you look at the mileage on Scrappy, it's only 299,000 kilometers. That is nothing for that variant of 3S-FE. I think Scrappy has seen it all, but I do want to save Scrappy's engine. There is a lot to be done, but the plan for now is drain the old engine oil, remove the bits of broken ignition, replace 2 spark plug tubes, and replace the valve cover gasket. As a quick reminder and disclaimer, don't do anything that I do. To open the oil pan drain plug, you'll need a 14mm wrench. Then place a bucket underneath the oil pan to prevent an oil slick. Unscrew the drain plug and see if you can do it quickly enough that you don't get oil on your hand. I got oil all over my hand. More importantly, hang on to the drain plug. Now that we've got rid of the nasty old oil, let's replace the gasket on the oil pan drain plug. Ta-da! Nailed it. Remove the bucket once the old oil is completely drained, then give your dirty hole a wipe and torque down the drain plug to 39 Newton meters. This oil is dark, but that is the way used oil should look coming from a healthy engine, and that is a good first sign. Dispose of the old oil responsibly whilst playing a game to see how high you can pour the oil from without spilling. We've established that this engine is probably worth saving, so let's save it. Taking a look under the hood, there is no battery to disconnect. If there was, I would disconnect it. Moving on to the valve cover. We can start dealing with these issues. And I think the problem is there's oil that seeped into these tubes. These two. And it's caused the base of these two to snap off. You can even see the oil there. We need to remove the valve cover first, so to do that, take off any hoses attached to the valve cover. When removing the PCV valve hose, the entire PCV valve snapped, revealing a hideous attempt at a repair. That is quite an essential valve on the engine that has clearly not been doing its job and will have to be replaced. There is wire housing that runs over the side of the valve cover that needs to get loose. Use a 14mm socket to disconnect the ground wires attached to the cylinder head and a 10mm socket to disconnect the wires attached to the alternator. Push your wires and your worries aside. Now we know we're getting into the thick of things because we're getting out the big 30mm socket to undo the spark plug tube nuts that hold down the valve cover. A 12mm socket loosens the bracket that holds the accelerator cable in place, and once that's out the way, we can finally lift up the valve cover. I'm sure there's a less awkward way to do this, but at least I was careful. And things are looking good inside Scrappy. I would take a bet that this engine's going to run well. I'm going to remove the old valve cover gasket and replace that later. And then to get the spark plug tubes out, you need to screw on the spark plug tube nuts, one facing down and another on top of that facing up. Then use a 30mm wrench. I've got a large adjustable wrench. And unscrew the spark plug tubes counterclockwise. Look at that mess in there. At least we can reach it now. This is what this side looks like. Also a slight oil leak. Whilst cleaning up some of the oil, an idea sparked in my mind, excuse the pun, and I decided to use a tent peg and mallet to break up the bits stuck in the spark plug wells. Some long-nosed pliers were then used to fish the broken up bits of plastic and rubber out. But that is not where it ends. I wanted these spark plug wells as clean as a whistle, so the vacuum cleaner was next. For the finishing touches, a bit of putty adhesive on the end of a paintbrush was used to pick up the last few scraps, and then an alcohol swab was used to get things sparkling clean. Once your spark plug wells are shining like the crown jewels, you can reinstall the spark plug tubes. I've decided to buy 2 new spark plug tubes instead of cleaning up the old ones, and I'm going to be using RTV silicone gasket maker to make sure the seal is perfect. The spark plug tube nuts go on, one facing up, one facing down, then put a thin layer of RTV silicone gasket maker around the bottom thread of the spark plug tube, and similarly around the thread of the spark plug well to make an ideal fit. Most of the tightening can be done by hand, and then you'll need a 30mm socket to tighten the spark plug tube down to 39 Newton meters. Then you'll need your 30mm wrench and the 30mm socket. Hold the spark plug tube nuts in place, the bottom one with a 30mm wrench, and then counterclockwise turn the top spark plug tube nut to loosen it, and then you can screw them both off. The process was repeated again, and the 2 new tubes are making this engine look 10 years younger.
The next day.
The RTV silicone needs at least 24 hours to cure, so while that's happening, let's start working on the valve cover. It looks like someone got a little overzealous with some gasket maker, and that is why I'm having to knock off the old grommets with one of the old spark plug tubes. Flipping the valve cover over, we won't need the oil cap for now. And we won't need this broken PCV valve at all. PCV stands for positive crankcase ventilation, and I thought it would be simple to pop it off, but nothing in life is that simple. The PCV valve grommet fell into the valve cover, which is not ideal. Then it snapped in half when I tried to fish it out with some long nose pliers, but thank goodness I was able to get the other half out too. This valve cover looks like it's made some bad life choices and needs to go to rehab. After a bit of a scrub, it was time to get out the proper brush, a wire wheel brush, and the drill. I can do this because I want to paint the valve cover with engine enamel. That is the metallic shine we are looking for. I'm going to clean up the last bit of grime with some paint thinner, and then instead of putting some primer down, I'm just going to skip that step and move straight to high heat engine enamel because the surface is really well prepped. We're going with Yum Yum Yellow. I had done a fairly decent job of covering all the parts where the paint shouldn't go with masking tape, and now that the paint is dry to the touch, that masking tape can come off. Moving back to the engine bay, we're going to prep for the valve cover gasket by removing any old gasket material from the top of the cylinder head surface and wiping it completely clean with alcohol swabs. These alcohol prep pads can be used to heal your wounds or your car's problems. Next, we'll need this magic gasket maker again. It is smeared onto 8 points on the top surface of the cylinder head, 4 corners where the gasket turns 90 degrees, and 4 more spots where the cylinder head surface has joins. 4 spots on each side. The gasket itself clips into the valve cover, so flip the valve cover over and make sure the groove for the gasket is perfectly clean with your alcohol prep pads. It's pretty obvious which way around the gasket goes, so once you figure that out, enjoy the satisfaction of clipping it perfectly in place. Perfecto! Now the Yum Yum Yellow valve cover is ready for action. Pop the valve cover on with its fresh gasket installed. I have 4 new grommets to place on top of the spark plug tubes. They have built-in washers. That's for the spark plug tube nuts to slide against when you tighten them. We also have 4 new spark plug tube nuts, but wait, before you tighten those nuts down, you need to make sure the square tab on the grommets is facing towards the timing belt side of the engine. This tab does tend to move when you tighten the nuts down, but don't stress. The repair manual says it can move 15 degrees either side of the central point. Whip out that big 30mm socket again, and then the 3S-FE repair manual says uniformly tighten the nuts in several passes to 23 Newton meters. I am quietly optimistic that this engine is going to run well. What do you think? I got a new grommet to replace the one I snapped in half. None of these parts are expensive, by the way, and they were all easy to obtain. To be honest, probably nothing I ever do will be expensive. I also got a replacement PCV valve. If you give it a shake, you can hear the working valve inside. Just push the grommet and the PCV valve into the valve cover hole with a bit of force. This hose you can see is cracked, and the hose that went up the top here. Get rid of those crack hose and replace them with some clean hose. I'm just using 2 stainless steel hose clamps that I got from the hardware store for the one side of the hoses, and for the other side of the hoses I've got some of Toyota's OEM hose clips that make a satisfying sound as you release them. The OEM clips feel sturdy. Once they are released with some pliers, it feels like they will stay in place for eternity. The finishing touches now are to bolt back the throttle cable bracket and to reconnect the wiring that you took off earlier. Don't forget the oil cap if you haven't put that on already. I'm not going to start this up for a while. Firstly, because there's still a lot of work to be done. And secondly, the enamel paint needs to completely cure for a week or 2. Remember to reconnect this little nut. I'll fix this dodgy wiring later. And then get one step closer to firing this up. Until next time.